both. Now why don't you say that I hurt you less than my dad hurt me? Do you understand my God? You don't have a God? You don't have knowledge? No. Savage. How dare you say it to me? As soon as I get home, I'm going to sticking a knife down my throat.
On February 13th, 1963, a baby was born by the name of Celeste Johnson. And Celeste would never get to know who her birth parents were. It was said that she only met her mom one time, but was told to go away. Celeste would eventually get adopted, but would claim that she was allegedly abused as a child, and things had gotten so bad that she had attempted suicide as a teenager. She would eventually get involved with a man named Craig Bratcher, and at the age of 17, she would give birth to twins, Jennifer and Christina. The marriage between Craig and Celeste was toxic, and they would eventually get divorced. This meant that the twins would get split up between the two, one living with Craig and the other with Celeste. Celeste would remarry 2 more times, but nothing really stuck. She was feeling pretty down. I mean, here she was, 32 years old and nothing to show for it. Just a few failed marriages and cleaning off tables to barely make minimum wage. This brings us to a man by the name of Stephen Beard, who, because of his wife's recent passing, has become a widower. Now, a widow is often referred to a woman who has lost her spouse and hasn't remarried, and a widower is just a male version of the same thing. His wife's death left him with this feeling of emptiness. He was an older man in his 60s and also a self-made millionaire. He worked at Fox as an executive broadcaster in his younger years, but he was retired now and had nothing but time on his hands. So one day, Stephen's out driving around when he sees an old diner he used to visit in his 20s. Now, the diner didn't look old, but to Stephen, it was the same old diner. Now, he had been trying to recapture his youth, so he thought, why not go in, get a bite to eat, and maybe it'll bring back old memories. So he goes in, sits down, and looks at the menu. Now, keep in mind he hasn't been here in over 30 years, so he's kind of struggling to find what he wants. When a waitress walks up and says hello and asks what he would like, but Stephen was so focused on the menu that he didn't even hear anything the waitress said. But she understood that the man wasn't ready, so she walked away to give him more time to think. Eventually she comes back and asks to take his order, but still, Stephen was so confused with the menu that he heard nothing. So she got an idea. She just looked over and pointed. Yep, that's what you want. Mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, and the steak, but cooked medium well. And at this, Stephen started laughing. He felt so embarrassed. So he apologized and asked her name. But when she said it, he was stunned. She was beautiful. But Stephen didn't want to embarrass himself further, so he got his lunch, left a very generous tip, and politely left. And so the days would go on, but only 1 week later, he'd find himself going right back to that diner. And he and that waitress would later get married. Her name was Celeste. But little did the couple know, that tragedy would strike just years later. Remember Celeste's first husband, Craig? Well, they would say he was suffering in silence. But he found an opening when the split-apart twins planned a summer trip to be reunited at their grandparents' house in California. It had been 2 years since the twins had saw each other, so Jennifer and Christina were over the moon excited. But when Jennifer arrived, the first thing she did was try to call her dad to let him know she was safe. But there was no answer. But Jennifer didn't think anything of it. She just figured he was busy and went to go catch up with her sister. The next morning, Jennifer was up bright and early, but she didn't want to call him immediately because she wanted to let him sleep in. So around 10 a.m., she called, but no answer. She started to feel worried, but not worried. It was just that weird power struggle. An hour later, Christina tried, but no answer. And again, Jennifer tried, but it was the same thing. No answer. They would continue calling every hour, the whole day, with no luck. When finally one of the girl's grandparents called the police to request a welfare check. Now, for those who don't know, a welfare check is when a police officer visits someone's home or residence to ensure the well-being of a person. But on this check, they would find that Craig took his own life. And in his pocket was a handwritten note to his daughters. Now, the contents within the note was never made public, but we can speculate that he probably wrote about how he loved his girls and was sorry for what he was about to do. Jennifer's life had got flipped upside down. She was only supposed to be visiting for 2 weeks, but now she was going to be moving in with her mom, sister, and Stephen. When Jennifer got to the mansion, she was so amazed. It was just so beautiful, but she still had her guard up. She wasn't going to be bought by some fancy house and nice cars. But then Stephen came down the steps. He had this nice big smile and opened arms. He of course knew what happened to her father, so he made an extra effort to make her feel welcomed. And Sundays were extra special because they would always go out and get breakfast together. Everything was going great, but over time, Celeste had developed this unhealthy addiction. She would spend and spend and spend with impunity. It had gotten so bad that Stephen was worried that he would simply just run out of money. It was said that in just 2 months, she spent over $300,000, and this led into an argument. And in the argument, Stephen would say something that made Celeste snap. She just went to her purse and took out a gun. She was waving it around, pointing it at Stephen, the girls, saying how she should just kill them all. We can die as a family. Or maybe you guys don't love me anymore, so I'll just die alone. Now in the midst of all this madness, Christina had called 911.
Please hurry, my mom needs help.
But eventually, Stephen had talked Celeste into putting down the gun. The family embraced, and Celeste was checked into a mental facility. But it's important to know the word that was said that initially set Celeste off. Stephen suggested that the couple should get a divorce. Now why that's important is because when the couple initially got married, there was talks that she was a gold digger, and she absolutely wasn't. But who would believe her? So she just decided to sign a prenup. But I think over time, all that money changed something within Celeste. She was no longer that innocent girl. She had developed this desire that became unquenchable. While she was in the facility, she met a woman named Tracy, and this chance encounter would effectively ruin both of their lives. Tracy Tarleton. She was a middle-aged woman suffering from auditory hallucinations, which basically meant she heard voices. She also had vicious bouts of depression, with some episodes leading her to question suicide. She had a temper, but was doing better at controlling it, or at least trying to. And I guess everything counts. She was the type to always try to do the right thing, although what she may have thought was the right thing at the time wasn't always the legal thing. Tracy and Celeste would meet at the same mental facility, and right away, Tracy knew she liked her. After all, Tracy was attracted to women, and in walked this woman with gorgeous blonde hair and a $1 million smile to match. Now Celeste had picked up on this instantly, and the two hit it off right away. And even after being checked out of the facility, the two were inseparable. They were always together. Always. They were best friends, and the two told each other everything, even the things you'd rather not talk about. But it begs the question, what was really going on inside that house? Well, it would turn out that over the course of their marriage, Stephen, while he was an excellent stepdad toward the girls and they absolutely adored him, behind closed doors, he wasn't so friendly towards Celeste. And over time, she would begin to tell her friend Tracy about what was really going on. How he would call her fat, and that she should just go jump off a cliff, and even hitting her. She couldn't tell the girls about it. They were in love. So for 5 years, she was effectively Stephen's punching bag, and the only person she could tell about the abuse was Tracy, which is why she always wanted her around. The abuse was at an all-time high, and Celeste was convinced that Stephen was going to kill her, so she goes to Tracy's house and tells her even more terrible things about Stephen, and how she was terrified to go back home. And Tracy, being her protector, finally had enough, and said if I just kill him, then you and your girls will finally be safe. And at this, Celeste was shocked. She was devastated that it had to come to this, but she had agreed that there was no other way. And so the two began planning. They decided that Celeste should use her shotgun. They would have to wait for at least one of the girls to be out of the house for the night, and the other, Celeste would sleep in their room, because when the cops showed up, she wanted to be there for her girl. Tracy would enter through the back door. That would be unlocked by Celeste. It would have to be around 2 a.m. because that's when the sleeping pills that Celeste put into his drink would be at full effect. And by the time he woke up, it would already be too late. When you get halfway up the steps, it'll be the far door on the left. Don't worry about the shell casing. I'll take care of it. Just take a breath and squeeze down. When it's done, run. Christina was in a deep sleep when she was woken up to the sound of police sirens, a loud banging on the door, and the flashing of red and blue lights. Her heart rate quickened. She was worried about her sister, who was spending the night at her boyfriend's house. She had feared that Jennifer had gotten into some kind of trouble, but when he opened the doors, the EMTs immediately bolted upstairs, yelling that some man had gotten shot in the stomach. But she couldn't believe her ears. Were they talking about Steve? The man that the twins had grown to love and had adopted them just years earlier? As her eyes filled with tears, she could only hope that he was okay. And Celeste was in complete hysterics, begging the EMTs to save his life. But on the way to the hospital, she would tell Christina to not mention Tracy's name. Eventually, Stephen would wake up, but it would take a few days for him to actually be able to talk. But when he could, in came Celeste. She just went on and on about how scared she was and how she didn't know what she would do if he passed away. So Stephen decided to write Celeste and her daughters into his will. Now when the girls were being questioned by investigators, Christina brought up Tracy's name. So the police went to her house, found a gun, and arrested her. But she stayed silent because no matter what, she had to protect Celeste. 2 months later, Stephen succumbed to his injuries and passed away. There were these news vans parked outside of her home all day, and she knew eventually she would have to address them. But before you can know what happened next, we have to go all the way back to when Celeste and Stephen first met. Remember when Stephen left that very generous tip? Well, that would be the single domino that will spark a chain of events that will eventually lead us into finding out who the heartless killer actually was. So she took the money and felt something she never felt before, like a somebody. But quickly, it was all gone, and that dopamine went away with it. She was back to being regular old Celeste. She was just hoping that Mr. Beard would come back. And so the days would go on, just waiting tables and barely scraping by. She'd often bring home leftovers from work, but she knew this was no way to live. When on a Token Wednesday, there he was, Stephen Beard. And not only was he back, but he was back just for her. So she wouldn't even have to try. She quickly seduced him, and 1 month later, they were dating. And 9 months later, they were married. And to avoid any talks of her being a gold digger, she signed a prenup. And for a few years, she was comfortable. But her addiction would grow more and more, until eventually she would come up with this crazy plan. She was gonna need a gun and some amazing acting skills. And so she purchased a gun. They lived in Austin, Texas, so it was easy to get. Now all she had to do was wait for an opening and take it. But she had a problem. See, Steven never really complained, so she would have to do something drastic. So for 2 months, she would go on a mega spending spree, spending over $300,000. This would lead to an argument where she'd get to show off her acting skills, leading her into a mental facility where she would find somebody that was easily manipulated. And if she did talk one, who would believe the crazy woman? So Steven, being the abusive husband, never happened. It was all simply just lies. It would seem Celeste had it all figured out. I mean, a divorce would net her over $500,000. A divorce without a prenup would net her $4 million. But to be in the will, she was now looking at $10 million. But her masterful plan would prove to be not as masterful as she thought. Because she forgot to factor in one key variable: guilt. She had got a phone call from the hospital the night before, delivering the news that Steven had passed away. All Celeste knew was that she was not rich, but she had to put on a sad face delivering the news to the girls, who were devastated. The next morning, the news media were parked outside of her home all day, and she knew eventually she'd have to address them.
Mrs.
Thank
Beard?
you so much for coming.
Mrs. Beard, did you have anything to do with the murder of your husband?
My beloved husband, Stephen Beard, has passed away. This has been a very difficult time for me and my daughters, and we appreciate all your thoughts and prayers. My darling husband, Steve, was generous, gifted, and strong. He brought nothing but joy to my life, and I will love him and miss him forever.
And take a wild guess who was watching the news.
Mrs. Beard, what do you think of Tracy Tarleton, the alleged shooter?
I pray for Miss Tarleton. And I blame myself for allowing her into our lives, not realizing how disturbed she really is.
She had made Belle and had a front row seat to see her best friend completely trash her on national television.
This is Celeste. Make it count.
The least you could do is not trash me in the media. You asked for this, Celeste. You said you'd take care of me.
And a little while later, the police came knocking on her door.
This is Celeste. Make it count.
I'm done lying for you. I am done.
She was now facing the death penalty, and Tracy, with a now broken heart, told everything. Life in the Beard house had gotten more and more disturbing since Steven's death, and it wasn't uncommon for Celeste to mention the idea of family suicide to the girls. But it wasn't until they were out casket shopping that they felt that they were ever in true danger. Celeste had saw 2 pink caskets and said, "I'll get these for you two. That way you'll both be nice and comfy." Now, if you think about it, all 3 were written into Steven's will, so the girls would have got a portion of the money. But if the girls were to disappear, well, that would just make Celeste that much more richer. Christina had become sort of like a family secretary when she came across 2 life insurance policies, totaling to $100K. Now, this was terrifying, but to the side of her were newspapers. And on those newspapers, she saw Tracy. And to her horror, what Tracy was saying was beginning to make more and more sense. After Stephen's funeral, Celeste was arrested and charged with the murder of Stephen Beard. But she had made bail. I mean, she was still a millionaire after all. and so she went home. She was now just awaiting trial. The girls didn't know what to think, but Christina had planned to visit with Tracy in jail to hear once and for all what actually happened. Tracy would tearfully explain everything from start to finish, and by the end, Christina had completely believed her. But before the visit was over, Tracy had talked about how she had already accepted her fate. She knew she didn't stand a chance in court. A lawyer would walk all over her, and when that happened, she'd be serving life, leaving Celeste walking around a free woman. Tracy tearfully forced a smile and waved goodbye to Christina. So now the twins have a mission. They need to go get justice for Stephen and go get their mom a life sentence. They would hatch this plan of simply just recording her, knowing that eventually she'd say something crazy. But what she said on this day would be the final nail in the coffin. Seeing as Tracy was out talking to police, Celeste wanted to silence her for good. And after a few drinks, she heard a knock on her door. But only Christina went in. It seemed that Jennifer wanted no contact. But at least she still had Christina. Somebody to tell all her dirty little secrets to.
What are you so frightened of? You think you know me, but you don't. When you came home, I was thinking, I hired somebody.
The death of the twins' father made them die a little inside. But the contents within this recording made them die a little more. And now, to get justice, they'd have to commit the ultimate act of betrayal by betraying the very person that gave them life. She was terrified, constantly having to look over her shoulder. All she knew was she had to get to her sister before it was too late. Their mom had gone completely mad, hiring hitmen. The girls weren't going to be safe until she was behind bars for good. But on the other side of the road was nothing. It was all in her head. The anxiety, the stress. I mean, her mom was a murderer. So this was the twins' new normal. Just going from hotel room to hotel room, constantly feeling like somebody was watching them at all times. And the only way for them to get back to being normal was to win in court.
This soap opera that we went through for 4 weeks does not prove Celeste is a killer or wanted her husband dead or did anything to do it. The only evidence they have is Tracy Tarleton, and Tracy Tarleton can't be believed. She can't be believed because she has such a stake in it, but not only because of that, but because she's a crazy woman.
The next day, it was up to Christina. Celeste couldn't believe her eyes. It was her own daughter with a new piece of evidence. Just a small tape recorder.
Christina, what are you saying by deliberately disobeying me? Huh? What don't you know? Because I'm a worse person and my father who molested me. You know what you don't know? Huh? Because I've been that cruel to you? No. Then why don't you say that I hurt you, but that my dad hurt me? Because you did. What are you so frightened of? You think you know me, but you don't. When you came home, I was thinking, I hired somebody.
And not even Celeste would be able to slip out of this one. She was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 40 years.
What did I ever do to you, except love you? And this is how you treated us, like trash. You say we turned on you, but you turned on us. You turned on the whole Beard family. He let you into his home, loved you, honored, obeyed you. and you violated him and murdered him. You are guilty. Shame on you.
As for Tracy, she committed a terrible crime and did something that she'll never be able to take back. But instead of a life sentence, she got 20 years, which got reduced to 10. And as of 2011, she's been walking around a free woman. As for the twins, they want to keep a low profile, but I'm sure they're doing just fine. And as for me, if you like this video, I think you might like this one. There I was, standing with my fellow warriors, being marched forward to the unknown, hearing the sounds of chops and screams. When I made it outdoors, I found that they were chopping off the right hand of all soldiers, and commanders such as myself were to have both hands chopped off. A wise decision.